All right, we're back. Short of Tati, of course. Shout out to the global traveler who I'm sure is going to watch this one. So, Steve, I got
All over the
something.
world.
I got something for you. So,
Yeah.
over the weekend, I put together a carousel that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's just a simple idea of like what happens when you augment high agency people with modern, AI native, AI first technology stack and or operating models. And you can go in any direction you want to go, obviously, as always. But the question for you is, where does your head go when I say AI augmenting high agency people? What happens?
Yeah, speed with quality, right? I think, the old days of lots of PowerPoints and strategy sessions and all that fun stuff are gone because of all of these tools that are out there. Whether or not it's tools like Lovable or Bolt, and even on the creative side, there's some amazing tools out there that can just really crank out ideas from concept to functional prototype. Figma enabled us to really get to clickable prototype really quickly. Now with some of these AI tools, we can get to functional prototypes very quickly. And the fact that you start an engagement with a client, you work through those concepts, you go through design thinking sessions, and then very quickly it can be real. Maybe even in that session, maybe even in the room, on that day through a workshop or whatnot. The tools are there, and the other kind of part of your question, which is what happens when you combine that with a really high functioning agency person, whether that's a creative or technical strategist. Amazing things can happen, and that's kind of one of the things that we do is we get really amazing people, very kind of high end consultants and agency folks, because now the AI tools can get you 60-70% of the way, and then you combine that with an agency person who can polish it up and take it that last mile. You get amazing products very quickly, high quality products very quickly, and move faster than ever before.
For sure. Yeah, and I would love, Steve, just because I think there's so many moving parts
Yeah.
in you can call it enterprise AI, whatever. But I think a lot of people are getting real comfortable throwing the term around vibe coding, but I don't think that a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, I don't know how many people actually know what in the world that means. And I think you just landed the plane on a number of different dimensions, but could you walk us through what is vibe coding from your perspective, and what are the implications in the context of what you just described, right? Democratizing
Yeah.
access to being able to build things, and where's the line, right, between what it can functionally do, and perhaps when you got to bring in some more horsepower to not break the wheels off of it.
Yes. So vibe coding to me is you got a vibe, you got an idea, put it in one of these tools, and you see what comes out.
Shout out Rick Rubin. That's
Yeah,
he's involved with that, but keep going.
absolutely. And that's kind of the concept. And that's the beauty of some of the AI tools that are out there is now you don't necessarily have to be technical. And then I think the other beauty of the AI tools out there is you can take a non-technical person and have them learn very quickly. I talked to a founder the other day that is basically a one-person founder building, and they had never written a line of code before in their life, and they just started creating their product, doing vibe coding, and then used Claude Code to continue to build. Now that being said, I think there is a
Yeah, let's go
reality.
guardrails and let's get real because it's the plastic app thing. Go for it.
Yeah, there's a reality of what it can and can't do. I think when you get into taking something from concept to production and then scale, right, you need an engineering team to do that. I think one of the things that has happened is there is this idea that you can just create an amazing product with vibe coding. It can get you a certain percentage of the way, but and it can absolutely create your concept in in something that is visual and functional. But then to take it and make it production ready, build it out in terms of functionality. Some of the platforms are getting better, but you need true engineers to really make it a true functioning, scalable product, right? And that comes down to, your cloud computing, your, the ability to stand up your cloud infrastructure, DevOps, all that fun stuff. So, it's great. I saw a post this weekend that was basically an individual took 10,000 lines of code and put it into Claude Code and said, man, it cleaned it up, it made it beautiful, and everything was great. It didn't work, but man, it was beautiful.
It looked good though.
It looked good. And that's the thing, is it still takes, engineering, functional logic, the right SaaS products, the right third-party integrations, security, right, authorization, authentication, all that stuff needs to be built out, thought through for, a scalable product for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I have a great answer, and I appreciate that, because I think a lot of folks, one of the things I think you and Tati, shout out Tati, will be back next week, do a great job of is, taking stuff that might be up here and landing it, right? Like, okay, so vibe coding, I think you did a phenomenal job kind of helping folks understand, what is it and maybe what isn't it. One of the things I think that is a powerful example, which I dropped into the carousel, was this notion of one, and I'm sure I'm off with the numbers, but Lovable grew over an 8-month period, from 0 to 100 million in revenue with 15 people, which is just like, if that doesn't blow you away, I don't know what will, right? So there's the first data point. But the second data point is like there's a lot of different ways to look at that. Oh my gosh, like we're all gonna, we should all go start our own companies and do that, right? And like, I'm sure we can do that. Like, okay, like that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, oh my gosh, like what does this mean for my job or my company or what have you? And I think one of the things that I thought was so cool, and that's why I dropped it in there, because it's not like the most earth-shattering idea, but Cognizant, right?
Yeah.
340,000 people, a technology consulting and services business, literally took Lovable and shout out to Lovable for calling this out, but they're like, hey, this is going to be quote unquote the largest hackathon in the history of hackathons, because 340,000 person client of ours, Cognizant, is using Lovable to do exactly that. And so I think what's interesting, that maybe you could shed some light on is, without going through the historical context, because no need to do that, but by democratizing access to people who have, let's say, serious, subject matter expertise that might be very nuanced, what gets you excited about the ability to help those people, or they can help themselves, in building prototypes to stress test ideas without having to deal with a historical bottleneck, all due respect collectively, to the prioritization queue of product and engineering? And where do you think this is going, right? Because that's a heck of an innovation acceleration mechanism that I don't think folks are necessarily realizing how quick things can start moving here, Yeah, amazing
story and headline with Cognizant and Lovable. I can't imagine that all 340,000 people were doing a hackathon all at the same time, but maybe they were. Who knows? Global company.
So many people.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the hackathons have been around for a while, right? To do innovation, right? And I think that is an amazing tool. And a lot of times when you do a hackathon, there'll be core teams that sort of have an idea and brainstorm on it and build it out. Still, whether it was back in the day or now with some of these AI tools, what comes out of that is a start of a product, right? And maybe a proof of concept, and some great ideas, amazing things. I think the reality is probably Cognizant's then going to sell you a large project, to build that out over some time and then maintain it over some time.
You bet.
But yeah, I think to get a little bit into your question around, where we are with these these tools that are out there, I think, there was always, within enterprises and kind of mid-market companies, there was always teams that would do skunk work projects, right? And try to create things from concept, whether or not that was teams that were on the product side or the marketing area or even within IT. And now these tools can enable that even more so, and amazing products or amazing ideas can come to life. And that's a beautiful thing for executives in these large companies too, because they can see it. And if they're running innovation programs or working with third parties to do innovation programs, then they can decide on business models, business products very quickly. Because as an executive in the past, it was like, okay, you got a great idea. Now here's some funding and go build it out for 3 to 4 months, right, or 6 months, and create an MVP. Now it's like, oh, I see it. I see the concept. Let's plug it in, and now let's carve up a team and go. So again, it gets back to speed and decision making power within those companies. So that's on the bigger company side, I think. And then the other amazing things with startups is you can do product market fit very quickly, right? You can get your concept out in front of people and get input from those people very quickly. So that is just going to have more startups create things and move quickly to validate their product market fit, and then roll. And then once they have validation too, then you go through their funding rounds and continue to build and build. So, I think it's a great time, especially to be in the startup space. And we'll see startups that excel, that are 15 people, like Lovable, or 3 to 5 people, for sure. Like we will come across that, in the next 1 to 2 years for sure. Even the story of like an Instagram, that was a very small team.
Yep.
So those from the past, like you got a lot of those examples, but we're going to see more and more of them because of these tools that can make you move fast and prove your product pretty fast to market.
Love it. Thanks, Steve, as always. Talk to you. See ya.